My mother's people bury their dead where they lived, at the top of a hollow in eastern Kentucky that the maps mark as a bend in a creek road. I grew up 2 states away and knew the place from a handful of childhood summers. Last June made a year since my grandmother went into that hillside, and the family holds a supper when the year turns. My mother didn't ask me to come so much as inform me, so I took 2 days off and pointed the car south. The interstate gave way to blacktop, and the blacktop to gravel that crossed running water twice before committing to the hill. Where the gravel leaves the creek road stands a stack of flat grey stones, chest high, wide at the base, narrowing as it climbs. There are 4 of them, one at every way into the hollow, and nobody official has ever explained a single one. My cousin Denny met me at the second creek crossing and rode his 4-wheeler ahead of me the last mile. The homestead sits where the hollow widens, a white farmhouse and a silver barn, hayfields running up until the woods take over. Tables ran end to end under the walnut trees, covered dishes coming out faster than anyone could eat. My great-aunt Tildy, my grandmother's sister, ran it all from a lawn chair with a fly swatter she used strictly as a pointer. The old ones told stories about my grandmother that made my mother laugh and cry in the same breath. It was the second afternoon when I walked up to the burying ground alone. Past the hogwire fence, the hill drops into an old tobacco patch nobody has planted in 30 years. I was pulling weeds from her stone when I understood, before I could say how, that the field below was not empty. A woman stood in the far corner of the patch, against the tree line, dressed in white from her shoulders to the weeds. The old fence posts down there stand shoulder high on a grown man, and her waist was level with the top of them. I did the arithmetic slowly, because my eyes kept offering kinder answers, and none of them survived it. If she was standing on the ground, she was 8 feet tall if she was an inch. Something white and broad sat on her head, wide as a sun hat, and under the brim her face was a smudge of shadow. From across the field came a humming, thin as a wasp in a jar, a hymn with the tune pressed out. Then the smudge under the brim shifted, and I knew, the way you know a stove is hot, that our eyes had met. I remember none of the walk back, only Denny at the gate asking who I had seen, with no joke left in his voice. When I described the white dress and the hat, he didn't laugh, just walked me into the kitchen and went for Aunt Tildy. She came in drying her hands on a towel, looked at my face, and stopped drying them. The first thing she asked was whether the woman had been inside the far fence or beyond it. Inside, I told her, against the trees. She asked next if I had looked her in the eye, and the kitchen went very quiet while I looked for any answer but yes. She set down the towel, sent Denny for his daddy, and said nobody was to touch the phone until she allowed it. What she told me next, in the tone people use for weather and debts, amounts to this. There has been something in that hollow since before the family came, and the family came in 1840. It looks like a tall woman in white, but the old ones say that is just the shape it likes, the way a hook likes a worm. It cannot cross running water, and it cannot pass the stones, stacked long ago by people with harder stomachs than ours. The stones do not keep it out, because the hollow is the pen, and the family has lived in the pen for 6 generations. They stayed because the land was cheap, and their name for it was home, and you can get used to a bull. Children, they learn the rule, before they learn their letters. Never let it catch your eye, because from then on it wants you, and its one trick has worked for 180 years. It calls you out, she said, and never in its own voice. It borrows one you love, and a phone is nothing in this world but a voice. You have 3 days, she said, and it does its best work on the second night. The last one it caught, a hired man in 1961, went out at 3 in the morning answering what he took for his wife. I sat with sweet tea going warm and listened to my family plan around my death like a frost coming. Running the first night was what it wanted, since it is strongest where the road runs the creek in the dark. The plan was the back bedroom until the hour before dawn, and then the vans. Denny's mother ran salt across the sills and the threshold, and pinned the curtains shut. Aunt Tildy hung fishing line tied into 49 knots over the door. Since such things cannot pass knots, they have not counted. On each sill, on top of the salt, went a pie tin full of mustard seed. Anything that comes counting has to finish, she said, and dawn always comes before the end of the seed. She laid her Bible on the quilt, open to the Psalms, weighted with a horseshoe worn thin. She took my chin in her hand and gave me the night's rules. Stay on the bed. Whatever knocked, whatever called, in whatever voice, I was not to answer, not to correct it, not to tell it to go away. Speaking to it counts as answering, she said, and answering is a door. If I had to pray, I was to pray inside my teeth. Uncle Ash carried a ladderback chair into the hall outside my door, set a lamp low, and stayed. The house went to bed loud on purpose, and then the hollow had the night to itself. The humming started past 2, so far off it could have been the creek, or the wires, or my own blood. It came down the hollow, the way fog comes, and stopped under my window, careful of where the salt was. Then my mother's voice in the yard said my name twice, and asked me to come open the kitchen door, because her hands were full. It was my mother to the bone, her tiredness, the small laugh she hangs on the ends of things, and my legs believed before I did. In the hall, Uncle Ash said quietly, "Your mamma is asleep at the end of this hall, and her door has not opened." The voice tried again, patient, a little hurt, asking why I would leave her standing in the dark after she had driven this far. Then it quit being patient, and the last sound of my name went long and thin, the way tape stretches, and ended somewhere no throat goes. After that the seeds ticked in the pie tin, 1 and 1 and 1, something beyond the glass giving each its full attention. I kept my teeth shut on a psalm, and the night went on being the night for a long, long time. Around 4, the humming pulled back up the hollow, unhurried, a landlord finishing rounds. My brother's voice tried once from the barn side as it left, though my brother has never set foot in Kentucky, and it knew that. Uncle Ash's chair creaked, and his voice came level as a floor joist, saying that was the worst of it. The knock at 5 was the one we had agreed on, 3 raps and then 2, low on the wood. Nobody had slept, and everybody pretended they had. They packed the 12-seat church van like a shell, cousins at every window, me dead center with a sack of salt in my lap. Aunt Tildy stayed on the porch, and the last thing she gave me was instructions. Eyes on your shoes till the second crossing, whatever brushes the van, whoever calls the driver's name. We rolled out with the headlights off in the first grey light, gravel the loudest thing in the world. Past the barn, Denny said, "Don't nobody look left," in the flat voice of a man reading a gauge. 12 heads studded their knees, while something white kept pace beyond the fence line, smooth as a boat on still water. At the first crossing, the creek talked under the tires, and whatever was keeping pace fell back. Before the second crossing, something trailed down the length of the van, once, the sound of a hand along a wall it owns. We took the second crossing hard enough to bounce the salt in my lap, and nobody said a word. Then we were past the stones at the hollow's mouth, and the morning was just a morning, birds loud, mist on the water. Denny drove me clear to the interstate, my cousin Leela following in my car, and nobody joked about it. He told me to stay gone a year, and to hang up if anyone who loved me called me back after dark. I stayed gone 3. I sent flowers in June, and my mother carried my apologies up the hollow. Last fall, Denny mailed me a photograph, the old glossy kind, a date inked on the back and nothing else. It shows the mouth of the hollow from the creek road and 2 stacks of grey stones at the gravel's edge, where all my life there was only one. The new pile is neat work, and the grass has not grown back around its footing. I called Denny once and asked what it meant. He was quiet a while, then said the count is 5 now, and not to ask who carried the stones. We talked about his kids after that, and neither of us said her name because she has never had one. But some nights, 2 states and many stones away, I catch myself listening for that tuneless hymn, and I keep my eyes on my shoes until it passes.